The rain came down in sheets, pounding the forest floor like a drum. I cursed under my breath as I sprinted through the trees, my boots squelching in the mud. My jacket was soaked through, clinging to my skin like a second layer. I'd been hiking for hours, and the storm had come out of nowhere. Up ahead, I spotted a dark opening in the side of a rocky hill, a cave. Relief washed over me. Shelter. I didn't care if it was a bear's den or a snake pit, I was getting out of this rain. I ducked inside, shaking water from my hair like a dog. The cave was larger than I expected, the air cool and damp. I pulled out my flashlight and clicked it on, the beam cutting through the darkness. The walls were smooth, almost polished, and the floor was littered with small, strange rocks that glinted in the light. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a shadow, maybe. But as I stepped closer, my heart skipped a beat. She was curled up against the far wall, her skin a pale, almost iridescent blue. Her hair was long and silver, like strands of moonlight, and her clothes, if you could call them that, were made of some shimmering fabric that seemed to shift colors as she moved. She was injured. A deep gash ran down her arm, and her breathing was shallow. Her eyes were closed, but as I approached, they fluttered open. They were unlike anything I'd ever seen, large and almond-shaped, with pupils that glowed faintly in the dark. "Hey," I said softly, holding up my hands to show I meant no harm. "I'm not going to hurt you." She stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then, in a voice that was both melodic and strained, she spoke. The words were foreign, but somehow, I understood her. "You are human?" I blinked. "Yeah. I'm human. Are you?" "I am Kaelith," she said, wincing as she tried to sit up. "I crashed here. My ship, it was damaged." "Crashed?" I repeated, my mind racing. "You mean you're an alien?" She nodded weakly. "I was fleeing my people. They do not take kindly to those who defy them." I didn't know what to say. Here I was, standing in a cave with an alien woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a sci-fi movie. Part of me wanted to pinch myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. "Let me help you," I said finally, kneeling beside her. "I've got a first aid kit in my pack." She watched silently as I rummaged through my bag, pulling out bandages and antiseptic. When I reached for her arm, she flinched but didn't pull away. Her skin was cool to the touch, almost like glass. "This might sting," I warned before applying the antiseptic. She hissed in pain but didn't cry out. As I bandaged her wound, she studied me with those luminous eyes. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. I shrugged. "Because you're hurt. And because I don't know. It's the right thing to do." She tilted her head, as if trying to understand me. "Your kind is not known for kindness to strangers." "Well, I guess I'm not your average human," I said with a grin. For the first time, she smiled, a small, tentative thing, but it lit up her face. "Thank you," she said softly. The storm raged outside, but inside the cave, it was quiet. I built a small fire using some dry wood I found near the entrance, and we sat in silence for a while, the warmth of the flames chasing away the chill. "So," I said after a while, "what happens now? Do you have a way to get back to your ship?" Kaelith shook her head. "It is too damaged. And even if I could repair it, my people would find me. They have ways of tracking those who escape." "Great," I muttered. "So what are you going to do?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and desperation. "I do not know. But I cannot stay here. If they find me, they will kill me, and anyone who helped me." I swallowed hard. Well, that's not exactly reassuring. I am sorry, she said, lowering her gaze. I did not mean to involve you in this. Hey, it's not your fault, I said quickly. Look, we'll figure something out. Maybe we can find a way to hide you. Or, I don't know, fix your ship. She smiled again, but this time it was sad. You are kind, human. But I fear there is no hope for me. Don't say that, I said firmly. There's always hope. For the next few hours, we talked. She told me about her world, a place of towering crystal spires and endless oceans, where the sky was always filled with swirling auroras. She spoke of her people, a race of warriors who valued strength above all else. And she told me why she had fled, because she had dared to question their ways, to dream of a life beyond war and conquest. In return, I told her about Earth, about its cities and forests, its oceans and mountains. I told her about humanity, with all its flaws and beauty. And as we talked, I realized how much we had in common, despite being from different worlds. The rain finally stopped as the first light of dawn crept into the cave. Kaelith stood, her movements graceful despite her injury. I must go, she said. Before they find me. Wait, I said, scrambling to my feet. Let me come with you. Maybe I can help. She shook her head. No. It is too dangerous. You have already done more than enough. But. Please, she said, her voice breaking. Do not make this harder than it already is. I wanted to argue, to insist that I could protect her. But the look in her eyes stopped me. She had made up her mind. Okay, I said finally. But take this. I handed her my flashlight and a few protein bars from my pack. Just in case. She took them, her fingers brushing against mine. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. And then, before I could say anything else, she turned and walked out of the cave, her silver hair catching the light of the rising sun. I watched until she disappeared into the trees, a strange ache in my chest. I stayed in the cave for a while, staring at the spot where she had stood. Part of me wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing, if she had been some kind of hallucination brought on by exhaustion and the storm. But the bandages on the cave floor and the faint shimmer of her footprints in the dirt told me otherwise. As I made my way back to the trail, I couldn't shake the feeling that our paths would cross again. Maybe it was wishful thinking, but I hoped it was true. Because in that cave, I had found something I hadn't even realized I was looking for, a connection to someone who was, in so many ways, just like me. And I knew, no matter where she was or what she was running from, I would never forget her. Epilogue. Months passed, and life returned to normal. I went back to work, back to my routine. But every now and then, I'd find myself staring at the stars, wondering if she was out there somewhere. Then, one night, as I was walking home from work, I saw it, a streak of light across the sky, brighter than any shooting star. It hovered for a moment, then shot off into the distance. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Because I knew she was out there. And I knew she was free.